Hello, and thank you for clicking on this video. I want to start by saying, before you get too far into this video, that if you have not, please check out Chapter 1 of my book series, The Guardian of Light, which I have as an example in the links below. For those of you who do not need to go and click because you've already listened to it, thank you for sticking around. Now, the first chapter that I put on this channel, I put it on as a way to get new people interested in my book series. And back then, when I had it recorded, I had kind of rushed out the project. If I had more time, and if my narrator might have been willing, I might have done something a little better. So what you listened to already is kind of the before, and this is kind of what I want to do with the after. So sit back, relax, and enjoy chapters 2 and 3 of The Guardian of Light.
Chapter 2. 20 minutes later, the plane descended into a sudden nosedive and crashed into the snow-covered ground below. Shortly just before the plane crashed, the creature tore a hole into the side of the plane and leaped out. As the plane exploded behind him, he slid through the snow. He turned around, then walked back over to the burning wreckage and began digging through it. He searched through it, tossing burning plane parts out of his way, until finally he found a large metal crate. He pulled it from the debris and examined it. The crate was only slightly damaged, but it could read the only word painted on it in large black letters, which read KRAMPUS. He ripped the lock off and threw open the lid. As he looked inside, he saw a dark, blood-red cloak with a gray furry trim and a large set of fur pants of the same color. He put them on, then he began to run north. He ran until he came to what looked like a large mountainside, which was so high and smooth it would be nearly impossible to climb. He sniffed the rocky mountain wall, then stepped through it as if it was not there at all. Once through, he found himself standing on the outskirts of a huge village. In the distance, he saw a large, massive castle with several tall towers, and in the center of it was a large dome. He skulked through the town, being careful to avoid windows and lit lampposts along the cobblestone streets. Krampus made it through the village without being seen by careful planning and hiding in the shadows. As he made it up to the castle walls, he sniffed the air again. He dashed quietly along the east wall of the castle, which was made of blue and gray-colored bricks. So much snow and ice was clinging to the wall, it almost made the castle appear as if it were made of ice. He stood at the base of one of the tall towers connected to the castle. Krampus looked around in the darkness. Suddenly he picked up a scent, and his ears twitched as he heard the distant muffled voices of guards. Realizing his time was short, he quickly grabbed onto the wall of the tower and began climbing. He climbed swiftly and silently like a cat climbing a tree. He stopped at the first large window, which was covered in frost. He slid the sharp claw of his right index finger along the glass, slicing through it easily. As he finished, he put his hand through the hole and unlocked the latch that kept it closed. The window swung open, and he quickly moved inside. Once inside, he found himself in a long hallway. It was lit with candles in elegant holders spaciously along the walls, giving off not only a bright glow, but warmth as well. The floor of the hall was smooth and slanted like a spiral of stairs. He rushed up the hall, passing every door until he came up to two large, dark wooden doors, engraved with a tree and a reindeer on each side. The doors had large golden handles with a small keyhole on the left handle. He opened the door, pulling the handle slowly, and headed inside. As he entered, he saw a short stairwell leading up into a larger room. As he slowly crept up the stairs, he saw a large fireplace with a large single wooden leather-covered chair. There was a small end table made from the trunk of a tree, polished with a shiny gloss finish. Along another wall was a large golden four-poster bed, covered in white satin sheets and a bright red cotton comforter. There was a massive closet on the left of the bed, and on the right of it there was a long wooden dresser with several drawers. Another wall was full of bookshelves and a large round window and several pictures of old men. Between two more of the bookshelves there was a long staff. It looked like an odd, thin little tree with a large crystal entangled into the top of the staff. When Krampus reached the center of the room, he heard the sound of someone standing up from the chair in front of the fireplace. He turned and saw an old, plump man with a pure white beard. The man also had long, thick, curly, matching hair and wore a silk, rose-red robe. His skin was slightly wrinkled, and his blue eyes looked so tired. "Krampus," the old man said in an astonished tone. "So you're the first, then. I never expected you to get here so quickly, though." Krampus rushed toward the old man and grabbed him by the throat. He lifted the old man off the ground, and as Krampus did this, the old man began to reach his hand out towards the staff. Krampus saw what he was doing, then threw him towards the wall, knocking him into a shelf holding little odds and ends. He hit the shelf with so much force that it shattered and caused a framed picture nearby to fall off the wall. The old man stammered up, but as he did, Krampus rushed toward him once again and tossed him across the room, sending him flying into the massive four-poster bed. The old man's large body broke right through one of the wooden posts of the bed. The man landed on the large soft bed and bounced off onto the floor. He tried to get up, but there was a sharp pain all through his spine. Krampus walked over to him and took the man's leg, digging his sharp claws into his ankle. He dragged the old man off the floor and threw him into the center of the room. The old man reached out once again for the staff, which started to move slightly towards him, but Krampus grabbed him and threw him up into the air. As he rose into the air quickly, the staff fell onto the ground. Then he came down just as fast as he rose, landing flat on his face, breaking several ribs. Krampus grabbed him and lifted him up by the back of his robe. He turned the old man and held him by the collar. "You are an old man. You do not have the power to defeat me," Krampus growled. "What are you waiting for?" the old man wheezed and coughed. "You do not deserve to be a guardian, but with your death, the line ends. You have no apprentice to continue on, a foolish mistake." "We all must do what we believe in," Santa gasped, feeling as if there was a heavy weight pressing down on his chest. The word struck a nerve, and Krampus became filled with rage all of a sudden. "Then believe in death," he roared as he threw him out the large round window. Just then he heard the sounds of several footsteps coming up the hallway. Krampus turned and saw several tall elves wearing emerald green robes covered in shiny chain-link armor which slightly sparkled. Some held swords and others held long wooden bows. Realizing he was outmatched and outnumbered, he darted over to the broken window. He jumped out as several arrows headed his way. He dug his claws into the side of the tower and slid down to make a quick escape. Several of the elves saw him land on the snow-covered ground below and take off running through the town. They saw something else as they looked out, the large, lifeless body of Santa's face down in the snow. The white snow was quickly turning a crimson-red color. Just then a short man, who also looked like an elf, only half as tall, ran into the room. "Santa? Santa, are you?" he called out in a high tone. He saw the stunned look of the other elves as they backed away from the window. "What happened?" One of the elves turned from the window. "Pipot, go alert the governors. Santa has been murdered." Pipot's face grew sad in the blink of an eye at the words he had just heard. He turned as fast as he could and sped down the stairs. Morning came as the elf who told Pipot to alert the governors entered a large room. The room was a massive square shape with benches around 3 of the walls, each row rising higher than the rest. In the center of the room was a large stone round table encrusted with a series of runes around its rim. There were 9 chairs, evenly spaced around the table, but only 8 of the chairs were occupied. The first chair had another elf, tall with golden blonde hair, green eyes, and a robe that seemed to be made out of dark green fabric. The next chair seemed empty, but sitting on the edge of the table was a small woman with silky pink and silver blonde hair, who looked like she was wearing a violet flower as a dress. She had clear, shining wings, like an insect that sparkled slightly. The following chair had a short, stocky, gruff-looking man with a dark black beard. He wore a shiny metal armor and a stone crown with a shiny white-bluish stone in the center of it. In the next chair was another short elf that was the same height as Pipot, only this one looked older and wore bright color clothes and a long pointed green hat. On the table in front of him was a scroll. In the following chair was a large, hairy-looking creature with a large nose and small eyes. He wore a robe made from several different animal furs. The chair beside him there was a small, green-skinned creature wearing red robes with golden trims. It had long ears and a long pencil-shaped nose. On its head was something that looked like a skull of a dog encrusted with jewels. The next chair had a woman sitting in it. Her skin was slightly tan, but her hair was a bright grassy green, and she was covered in red, yellow, and orange leaves. The next chair had a short man in bright green robes, and he had a very bright red and orange beard, and on his head was a crown made completely from emerald. The last chair was the largest, and was gold with a red velvet cushioning. The rest of the large room was empty. The tall, long, blonde-haired elf stood up. "As I am sure by you all being here you know what happened last night. However, I have spoken with my men, and I have learned that there is even worse news." He spoke softly. Then everyone around the table all started talking to each other. "Please, I have learned that the prison has been destroyed." "What? That is not possible," said the short-bearded man, with the stone crown let out. "I am afraid so, Governor Borwall. So as you all know, Santa had no apprentice in line to take his place. All those who were imprisoned have escaped. This is not something we had ever planned for. The world today is not ready to handle the dangers." The small green creature stood on his chair. "Governor Hiller, how can this be? The prison was built by the dwarves and guarded by your elves and the trolls," he spoke in a high-pitched tone. "And the cloaking spells were done by the fairies. We all know this, Governor Squill, but somehow it was attacked all the same," Hiller interrupted. The small woman in the violet flower dress fluttered up into the air, and as she did, her wings glowed. "The point is, without a powerful wizard like Santa to lead us, we are in great danger," she squeaked out in a soft, womanly voice. "Governor Nix is right. It is only because of the long line of the Guardian we stopped fighting each other and were able to join together. So we have brought the list," Hiller announced. The large, tall, hairy governor slammed a fist on the table. "That is forbidden!" he growled in outrage. Hiller raised out his hand in a stopping gesture. "I know the rules, but our former leader never chose a successor, and now that he is gone, the task of finding a new guardian falls on us." He looked at the faces of everyone around the table and saw they were all quite worried. "It was a guardian who brought all of our races together. So only together we can teach him what he will need to know. Governor Willard, the list, please." He nodded at the small elf with the long, pointed green hat. Willard unrolled the scroll, which had only a single name on it glowing white light. The name was Shaun Connor. Willard showed the scroll to Hiller, who then looked at the other elf standing by the table waiting. "Captain Rengar, please find this Shaun Connor and persuade him to join us. Use any magic you need to aid you in getting close to him, but remember, the choice must be his." Rengar nodded and bowed, as he turned and left the room as the rest of the governors once again began talking to each other. Chapter 3. The sudden loud buzzing of an alarm clock rang so loudly it was like a car alarm going off in someone's ear. Shaun Connor awoke with a sudden startle. Opening his eyes, he looked at the alarm clock. The clock glowed with the bright red numbers that read 9 a.m. He reached over and turned off the loud, annoying alarm. After silence returned to the room once more, he sat up in his bed. Shaun had black, short-length hair that shined in the morning light. His eyes were a deep blue, yet the color was bright and noticeable. He also had a light 5 o'clock shadow because he had skipped shaving for the last 2 days. He was thin and had a decent average body type. Shaun threw off his blankets and climbed out of bed. His bedroom was a mess with clothes that hung out of dresser drawers and empty soda cans and a few candy wrappers that sat near a laptop on the desk by his window. Shaun rubbed his hair as he yawned and walked over to another door on the right side of the room. He opened it and went into the bathroom, stepping over to the shower and turning it on. He tested the water until it was just the right temperature. He went about his morning routine. After he finished, he got dressed in some jeans. He got off his bedroom floor, and a work shirt he took off the back of a chair in front of his desk. As he put his shirt on, there was a sudden ringing coming from somewhere in the room. Shaun dropped to his knees and found his phone under the bed attached to a long white cord, which was plugged into the wall. He grabbed it and detached the cord. He pressed a green circle marked Answer on the phone's touchscreen. "Hello," he answered as he put the phone up to his ear. "Shaun, where the hell are you?" an angry voice yelled from the other end of the line. "Well, I was getting ready to come in," he said, realizing it was his boss on the other end. "You know what? Don't bother. You were supposed to be here 2 hours ago, and this is the 5th time you have been late. You're fired!" "What? No! I come in at 10 today. I can't be!" Shaun looked over at his alarm clock, which glowed the time, reading 12:16. "I'm done with this, Shaun. Turn in your uniform when you pick up your check," the angry voice said just before the line went dead. Shane tossed his cell phone down on his bed, then took off his shirt and threw it really hard at the wall in anger. Getting fired did make him angry, but partly relieved as well, because he had not been happy with his job much lately. Then suddenly his anger quickly faded, and he had become quite confused. He looked at the clock again. The time now read 12:17. Then he thought about everything he had done since he woke up. Somehow, 3 hours had passed since he woke up. He knew it never took him that long before. This just wasn't possible. He tried to retrace his steps of the morning in his mind, but each time he did, he figured it took him 24 minutes, as it did every day. He went into the bathroom to hang his towel, but noticed the floor was dry. He checked his cell phone and noticed it too had the same time as his alarm clock. All the clues said that he was missing time, but he did not remember blacking out or daydreaming. Shane was very certain he did not fall back asleep. He was completely clueless about what had happened, and nothing he could think of could explain it. Deciding he was hungry, he grabbed a different shirt out of his closet and threw it on. It was a simple red short-sleeved t-shirt that was slightly too large for him. He grabbed his cell off the bed and slipped it into his pocket. Finally, he grabbed a pair of socks out of his drawer and gave them a quick whiff to make sure they were clean. They smelled just like his laundry soap, and he casually put them on. He slipped his feet in a black pair of shoes, then tied up the laces. He left his room and passed through his small living room, which had an even smaller kitchen attached to it. There was a single couch right in the middle of the living room with a television against the wall, facing right at the middle of the couch. As he passed by the couch, he grabbed the television remote and pressed a button marked power. He tossed the remote back down and entered his kitchen. As he opened his fridge, he noticed there was hardly anything in it, just a box of leftover pizza from the night before, a few soda cans, a nearly empty carton of milk, an open box of baking soda, and a few bottles of water. The television popped on as he grabbed the box of leftover pizza. He put it on a small table which separated the kitchen from the living room. He grabbed one of the cans of soda as his phone began to ring and vibrate from within his pocket. He placed the can down as he reached into his pocket to get his cell phone. He answered it as a commercial played in the background. "Hi," he said, knowing by the caller ID it was his girlfriend on the line.
"So, what is this text I just got from Beth? She says you were fired?"
A woman's voice said in an agitated tone. "Hey, it's not my fault," he said defensively while recalling the strange event of the missing time. "Or maybe it is. I don't know," he replied, confused.
"Look, this has been a long time coming, but I am dumping you. Know what I'm saying?"
she told him. "What?" he exclaimed in more confusion.
"I'm sorry, but it's just not working out. Know what I'm saying?"
"Not really, no," he answered. Suddenly the line went dead. He felt as if he was having the worst luck ever, or was it the best? Either way, he was unsure. First, he lost his job, and now his girlfriend. He found it all shocking, though he did not feel as bad about the breakup as he should. Maybe she was right. It had not really been working out. He found her attractive, sure, but they were two totally different people with completely different friends and interests. On the bad side, he now had to find a new job, and fast. He had a little money in the bank, but that would only keep him afloat financially for about a month or two. As well as going through the hardest part of dating all over again, Shane was not looking forward to that. Then there was the good side. Now he had the chance to find a new and better job. Maybe a job in which he got better hours and better pay. He opened the box and grabbed a slice of cold pizza. He took a large bite of it, and although it would have tasted better hot, it was still decent cold. Shane was so wrapped up in his thoughts he did not notice a commercial on the television had a man talking about a job opportunity. He was saying that the job needed to be filled immediately and offered free living and food for life. He went on to explain how the job would offer free air travel and tons of excitement. However, Shane did not notice any of it as he opened the can of soda and gulped some of it down. After he finished eating, he put the rest of the pizza back into his fridge and decided he was going to head out. He thought about it for a bit and decided he might want to go job hunting, but first, he wanted to swing by his friend's place. If anyone could help him figure out what was happening, it was his friend Joe. So he turned off his television with the remote, then headed towards his front door. He reached into a bowl that sat on a small table and held his keys inside it. He opened the door and locked it on the inside as he left his apartment. Shane walked down the hall toward the elevator. He rode it down to the lobby and headed outside. Once outside, he walked down the sidewalk to an old beat-up blue two-door sports car. He got inside it and drove off. He drove over to his friend Joe's house, which was really his grandmother's, but Joe helped take care of her, and Shane respected that. He parked in the driveway and headed up to the front door. As he knocked on the front door of the house, his cell rang. He looked at the screen of his phone, and the number was 555-1225. He did not recognize the number, and pressed the red circle marked decline. He figured if it was important that whoever it was would leave a message. Just then the door opened. It was a slightly shorter man. The man had tan-colored skin and was cleanly shaven. He wore a black leather jacket with a blue shirt under it and very baggy jeans. As Shane saw Joe, he held up his hand and gave him a quick high five. "Hey, Joe, you will not believe the day I have had so far." "Sup, bro?" Joe answered back in a slightly concerned tone. "Can I hang out a bit?" Shane asked. "Sure, come on in." Joe turned, then headed into the house. Shane followed, closing the door behind him. They walked through the very clean house that clearly looks as if it belonged to an old woman with very religious taste. There were crosses, pictures of Jesus Christ, and many colorful candles throughout the house. Many of the surfaces, like the couch and tabletops, were covered with colorfully quilted doilies. They walked over to a door which led down into the basement of the house. They entered the basement, which was lit up with only Christmas lights and dim small lamps. There were posters of half-naked women and rap musicians on the wall. There was a long brown couch with small tears and stains. It was a lot worse looking than Shane's couch, but it faced a large 60-inch flat-screen television which rested on a wooden entertainment center. The basement seemed more like a small apartment. Shane remembered when he helped Joe move in. The two of them turned the massive basement into several rooms. They researched how to put up drywall, and they worked on it together. It did not turn out half bad either. Joe walked over to a black and orange device and pressed the large white button on it. The television popped on as the word Playbox 4 showed on the screen. He grabbed a case off a shelf, which was a game called Battle Ops 3. He pulled out the disc and put it in his Playbox 4. He grabbed an orange and black control as he sat down on his couch. Shane sat next to him as he told Joe that he had got fired. He then mentioned how his girlfriend called and broke up with him. Joe told him he was sorry to hear that, and Shane explained how he was rather unfazed by it. "I thought you really liked her," Joe asked, shocked. "I don't know. I mean, we had some fun, but we really just never really clicked." "Did she say why?" Shane shook his head. "Not really." Joe began playing his game while Shane continued to tell him about how he woke up at 9 like every morning, but when he got done getting ready, it was afternoon already. Joe paused his game. "You must have been mistaken then." "No, I know my alarm is always set for 9 a.m., and I know for a fact it didn't take me hours getting ready." "You probably spaced out. It's as simple as that," Joe commented, focusing more on his game now, which he resumed playing. Suddenly Shane's cell rang out once again. He looked at it and saw it was the same number which called him earlier, 555-1225. He figured since this was the second time the same number had called him in the last hour, it had to be a bill collector. Shane knew he was behind on a bill or two, but he did not want to deal with it right at the moment. Once again he pressed decline and waited to see if they would leave a voicemail. Whoever was calling him did not leave a message, so he began to figure it was definitely a telemarketer trying to reach him. If it was a bill collector, they would leave a message asking him to call them back. Shane slipped the phone back into his pocket. Then he and Joe took turns playing Battle Ops 3 well into the evening. Once it got late, Shane decided it was too late to go job hunting now and to head out first thing in the morning. Therefore, he said goodbye to Joe and left. As he drove home to his apartment and climbed into bed, only taking off his shoes.
I think that turned out pretty well. What did you think? I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. And now a word from our sponsor.
Looking for something to pass the time?
And want something epic to get you ready for Christmas?
Then check out his amazing paperback series on Amazon, The Guardian of Light.
It is an epic saga which will make any reader feel young again. This adult fantasy series was inspired by the works of J.K. Rowling,
Stephen King, and H.P. Lovecraft. Now Shaun is very hush-hush on this, but what we can tell you is
it has fairies, goblins, toys, love, adventure, trolls, magic,
thrills, elves, elementals, chills, the Illuminati, magic,
gods, Atlantis, wizards,
a snowman, dwarves, and even oops.
Can't say that. But seriously, check it out. This is a fantasy series that takes place in our world today and reinvents Christmas as we know it.
So what are you waiting for? Go to Amazon.com and check out his paperback series,
The Guardian of Light.
Now, as I've also said in a previous video, November and December I am giving away free digital codes. So I want to start by doing that right now, right here. If you did not manage to get a digital code, please check out some of my other videos. They are random through my videos. Also, every time I get 10 new subscribers, I also put a digital code in the very next video I upload. So be sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you'll be notified as soon as a new video goes up. Then you might have a chance at getting the next digital code that comes out. Also later today, I will be holding a contest from December 1st till December 15th. All entries must be received by then. More details will be in my next video that'll be out, like I said, later today. To finish off this video, I'd also like to say that if you enjoyed these 2 chapters and have checked out my sample chapters of The Witch's Hole and The Legal Murderer and want sound effects added to your own audiobooks and you're a self-published author, or even if you're traditionally published, if your traditional publisher will allow it, I am willing to work with authors on adding sound effects to your audiobooks. If this is something that you'd be interested in, please feel free to visit my website and shoot me an email, and we can discuss pricing. I would like to thank everyone for watching. Happy writing and happy reading, but most importantly, happy holidays.